ELI5. Why is dry firing a bow so bad for it? Does the arrow really make that much of a difference in that regard? Have dry fired a compound from being too worried about the release I was using and forgot to knock arrow. It makes a horrible sound. It stings like hell. String comes off, plastic and shit flew everywhere, and worst of all, everyone at the range knew exactly what the sound was and came running concerned and laughing, while I tried to figure out what on earth just happened. Dry firing a bow hurts the bow, hurts your pride, and potentially hurts you physically. A buddy gave me an awesome fucking wooden bow from the 80s in high school. I never knew this. Cue me drawing it in a college dorm. Never bought any arrows to show off for a girl and letting that strong snap. The wooden arm splintered and a cable broke, whipping me in the forearm and cutting it open. I was fine, but the bow was ruined, and I never got to shoot it once. Dumb high school kid. Still bummed I never got to fire it. Shooting bow with arrow energy is put into the arrow, propelling it forward. Shooting bow without arrow energy is into the bow limbs, severely damaging its structural integrity. It can crack, fracture, explode on the spot. I used to shoot religiously for years. It 100 makes a difference with without an arrow. Depending on the situation, I wouldn't trust to use that given bow again. Acceleration, force, mass. The arrow is in fact a lot heavier than just a string. But a string with no arrow has just as much tension. So the bow and string are going to straighten a lot faster without an arrow. Then once the string is taut, the bow cannot continue straightening and all the speed it built up needs to stop in an instant. Potential energy. You draw the string, increasing the energy held in the bow. With an arrow there's somewhere for that energy to go, without it all feeds back into the limbs of the bow and then what's left into your arms. Basically equal and opposite reactions doesn't have somewhere to equalize, so it's just sent back into the bow itself. Think of a pan and oil. Without any meat to cook, the oil will be the one to burn. The energy heat from the pan is transferred to the oil, and without any meat, it'll start smelling bad soon enough. Same logic with the bow. Without any arrow to pass or transfer the energy to, the bow will suffer from the energy transfer. So when you fire an arrow, the energy stored in the bow as you bend it gets pretty much entirely transferred into the arrow and propels it forward. If you dry fire a bow, that energy gets dissipated into the body of the bow and into your arm, potentially damaging the bow, and potentially hurting you. Absolutely. You know the power behind an arrow. Imagine that power going into your bow instead. It's essentially the same thing as shooting your bow with an arrow, as in you take two similar bows and have one of them shoot an arrow at the other bow. Firing a bow means setting it alight, just as firing gunpowder does, and firing pottery means putting it in the fire. Releasing a drawn bow with no arrow to loose means all of the force is put upon the bow itself and can damage and break it. It basically stresses everything in ways it's not entirely designed to handle. One probably won't do anything, but doing it all the time will start to cause unnecessary fatigue of parts over time. All the energy that goes into the arrow has to go somewhere. If it doesn't get transferred into the arrow, it'll become a shock wave going through the bow. This can tear the bow apart. Pull string from bow energy created from arm. Release string from bow energy released. Arrow energy released to arrow. No arrow energy released to bow. I throw ball, energy goes into ball, my arm is fine. I make throwing motion with full force, except now my arm slams into wall. Armory. I hear the same applies to air rifles. If you dry fire one, the piston slams forward too hard since there's no projectile in the barrel. You ever swing a baseball bat at something hard and it hurts your hand? Same concept. The energy was directed into the wrong object. It's the physical equivalent of transmitting on a radio without an antenna. All of the energy is reflected back into itself. When you dry fire the bow, the energy that is supposed to be transferred to the arrow gets absorbed by the bow instead.